Welcome to the Predictive Playbook for the end of the day show. I guess that's what we're going to call it. We'll come up with a better name later. But I have in the house Tony Finn and Rob Veno. And the style of this show is going to go along the lines of being in a pub and you get done work and you stop by to see your buddy or whatever. And you're going to talk a little sports and then have 2 pints and head on your way. But on this pub, you're actually going to get some really good winning information, in my humble opinion. Maybe not from me, but from these other two guys for sure.
And if you don't agree, you'll have a fight too on your hands. So.
Yeah, it's
Only appropriate.
That's right. Right. Oh, we could wait. Let's see. I'd have to go like this. Yeah, there.
Well, I at my age I had to bring a bat.
All right, let's talk about the game here. This game is in the NBA. It's my dead cat bounce. I didn't know what else to call it. But it got the attention of the guys on the NBA Wager Talk show, which I love doing. It's always good to get their attention on something. And on my slide, I said, and another financial term for Mr. Steve Merrill. Because he says you have to be a financial guy in order to say catch a falling knife. So I was a financial guy on Wall Street for many, many years. So I guess I'm allowed to say it. And a dead cat bounce is exactly that. And I'm not going to say the saying. I can't do it in this day and age of the world we live in. But it's a cat that just drops from a given height and does not bounce because it can't. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, paints a pretty.
All right. So the dead cat bounce applies to the Brooklyn Nets, and you know how much I love that team. You're going to bet on road underdogs facing a host that is not in the same conference. I don't think the Nets should be in the same league, actually, but that's a different system. But facing a host that is not in the same conference, the host is coming off a win installed as a favorite but did not cover the number. So the host is not expected to bounce back from that ATS loss, even though they won the previous game. It's a sign that they underperformed the market expectations. And that this system is 102 and 62 for 62% winning bets over the last 5 seasons. And I do like the New Orleans Pelicans plus the 9 points against the Brooklyn Nets. And I like the fact that nobody likes the Pelicans. But I think Teddy on the show actually he agreed that he liked the Pelicans more than anything. So the Pelicans have been miserable here in the last 3 weeks, and I just think 9 points is too much. I actually think that it opened at 11, and now it's been seeing some pretty good money. New Orleans is opened at 10.5 on the WagerTalk.com/odds page, which is a great page for you guys to go to. It has all the Vegas places in which you can give them your money and then get more back. And also a few others like Bookmaker, William Hill, Pinnacle, and a consensus. So right now, New Orleans is plus 9 across the board. Plus 9, minus 105 at Bookmaker is like the best price I see, but it's solid 9s across the board. So I'll ask you guys nicely, you're allowed to agree or disagree or pass. So we'll start with Tony.
Well, I would. There's so many. I have more questions than answers when it comes to this game. I think we know that Harden's out. Is that correct? That we know Durant's available, but the information that I'm unable to acquire, and I typically could at least get a ballpark, and that is how many minutes does Durant get? And then I have questions about who's the lineups, and because I do some work with lineups and the plus and minus of those lineups in relation to opponents, et cetera, et cetera. So I just have so many questions that when I looked at this number, my first thought was, it seems like with no Harden, it seems like with Durant being limited or at least restricted in some degree, that 9 points was a lot. Although I like I like over the total a little bit when I first saw the number as well. But then again, my questions aren't answered. So long story short, I passed. I passed on it, and I don't really even have a lean. I don't know about you, Rob.
Yeah, I think Real quick here, a couple of things, right? Zion Williamson came back last night. New Orleans played a terrific offensive first half and then crawled up into a little ball in the second half and let Atlanta run away and hide in that contest. The game barely I don't. You know what? I don't even think it got over the closer because the game had moved so much. I think it went from 225.5 all the way to 231 and landed 230. The majority of people had. I actually used it as a service play yesterday at the opener. 225 on the morning line, 225.5, and the majority of people would have gotten a win there, despite the fact, like I say, that New Orleans, I don't remember if they broke 40 in the second half. I could look it up, or if they didn't even break 40, but it was somewhere in that 40-point range after a huge first half. I think Zion, second game back, probably a little more acclimated now. And, of course, we know New Orleans, an offensive-minded team, not a lot of defense going on there. The question, to Tony, to your question about Durant's minutes, I feel like I saw somewhere yesterday that it was going to be somewhere in the 28 vicinity. We'll see if that sticks or if that doesn't stick. I don't know if game situation plays into that or not, but I certainly know that they don't want to get Kevin Durant hurt first game back, so they'll probably be more cautious than anything else. He and Kyrie together gives you two of the big three. James Harden, of course, pulled that hamstring 4 minutes into the game the other night, so he's not here. Joe Harris, you'll get both Aldridge, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Blake Griffin, right? They were both in the starting lineup together the other night. I think they played Aldridge as the center. I'm not positive how that went, power forward center, but you'll see them both tonight. Griffin rested last game. He'll be back. To me, I'm with you on this play over, Tony. I like that a little bit. And that goes... I'll preface it even by saying the Nets are 6-2 to the under in their last 8 games. They've been a bit overpriced where totals are concerned. They've played a lot of second half overs. I think at last count I had, they were 7-3 under in the second half. They played good first halves and then quieter second halves. I don't know if that's by direction. Steve Nash and the coaching staff asking for a little defense in the second half. I don't really know. I'm not privy to those huddles, but it's happened regardless. But I just don't see it happening with these two here tonight. New Orleans, we'll see what Brandon Ingram does, if he goes, if he doesn't go. But Lonzo, since he's been back, has shot the ball real well. And again, New Orleans has been an offensive-minded squad all season long. So to get to 233.5, guys, make a long story short, you're asking for 117 aside. Disregarding the point spread, you're asking for 117 aside, which if I put it in those terms, I do not think that's highly unlikely for these two teams. So I'd probably give a little lean toward the over here. I think Durant, for the time that he's out there, will be there to, I don't want to say selfishly shoot, because Kevin Durant is not a selfish player by any means, but I think he's going to get his share of looks in first time back, and he's been practicing for a little while now. So for me, John, I think it would be over 233.5. Not a real good opinion on this side. New Orleans back-to-back, I don't worry about too much. It's a youthful squad, but it is that situation, and that game against the Hawks was a divisional game yesterday. But like I said, I'd expect them to bounce back from that lousy second half and put together a full game offensively.
Yeah, I think my personal opinion is you're getting me to think a little parlay here too. I think if the Pelicans cover, it does go over. And that's an opinion. It's not based on any math or angles or anything like that. It's just, I guess, the experience, an experience metric.
Yeah, real quick, a number with them, 50 games played this year, 33-17 to the over, New Orleans. Been a pretty good, as much as odds makers have tried to push their totals up, they've still 67% of the time just about been able to get over the number. And the Nets, I think, are pretty good too. I'm looking here, I show 30-21 to the over out of Brooklyn, almost 60%, despite the fact that, like I say, recently it's been a run of unders.
Yeah, they sure have. I don't have the numbers, but I glanced at it, and it certainly, there's certainly a handful more unders.
Yeah,
in the last 15 games. Yeah, what is it?
I have 6-2 last 8, 75%. So And like I say, for those who split it up, maybe play first half, maybe wait till halftime, play second half, or play in game in second half. These Nets totals have stayed under.
Yeah.
In fact, I got the full number here, Tony. I think of 7-3 last 10, so that's 70%. We'll see if that changes now that Durant's back in the lineup. I don't know how good he'll be defensively. I don't know how you go about gauging that, Tone, but I wouldn't expect he'd be that great on the defensive end against what's potentially Zion Williamson in a power forward match. So I'm not sure who they'll match him up with.
Yeah, I mean, if they have to, if those listening, if you have to be, or you have a overwhelmingly irresistible or uncontrollable desire to be in this game, then that I agree with Rob. If you don't, then there's a couple of the games that have some value on the board. Yeah.
And I'll tell you this: since the All-Star break, the unders 118 and 92, 56.2% straight up.
Yeah.
That's been very noticeable. Doing the box scores and numbers each and every night. The under trend since the second half of the season began has definitely been noticeable. A lot of teams not even hitting 100 points recently. I don't know. I looked at that as well, and I didn't know how. Somebody asked me, what do you attribute this to? And I really didn't have an answer. Not something I would put my hand on the Bible and swear by. But I think it's that time. There's always that time of the year. Typically it's right after the All-Star break where young players hit a kind of a wall, and so there's some fatigue involved. And I think the schedule's been a little more compact, even though it's shortened and reduced. I think it's been compact, and this pandemic, I don't know about you guys, but we're all humans. All these players, they still put their pants on one leg at a time, just like us. And there's some stress involved with this, that what's required of someone when they travel, et cetera, just family. It could be, and I would never begrudge someone if they told me I'm just exhausted by this whole damn thing, I would not only would I not begrudge them, I would say I felt some of that as well.
And I was just playing around with this, so this is new news to me too. After the All-Star break this season, teams averaging more than 111 points, which we all know is the league average this year, are 88 and 54 for 62% to the under. And I'm going to quickly do under. Teams that are scoring under 111. They're not ironically, that's not surprising, 38 and 30 to the over for 56%. Yeah. So the league average is actually a pivot point for contrary over-unders.
Like anything, and you guys will, I know you know this, I'm probably just wasting time, but over-unders they're not just dependent on the teams that play. They're dependent on who sets the number. And so it's, I've heard many times in the past, some other time, this team's playing the over, they're playing fast. Well, and I would never bring it up or discount what they had to say. But in my opinion, in many situations, it's just we saw some inflated numbers this year. We saw some high scoring games, but I think we went over some of the numbers. Some of those numbers are just, they're just inflated. And it can't help. The probability they are going to come under. It's just going to come under. Whether we step in front of that and say, I'm not playing under on this team, if we know that it's probably going to happen, but we're just not going to step out there and take it,
Yeah, I agree. It's like watching red come up on the roulette wheel 9 times in a row. And
can't come out red again, right?
Well,
sorry, you can.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
I mean, it's a great point because when we do NBA tip-off together, Tone, there's a lot of times where, and being a majority totals player myself, I'll speak to this, where, I'll mention the fact that saying 7-3 over last 10 or 6-4 under, over under, they're cute words.
That's right.
What we're doing here is we're playing against numbers. We're not playing against words over, under,
Absolutely.
right? So generally speaking, I would take the number that's given to me and say, well, how many times did these teams exceed that particular number? Or how many times did they go under that particular number that we're dealing with tonight? Forgetting about what the unders and over statistically are, the trends are. It's cute to say, but again, as you mentioned, we're betting unders, and we're betting numbers, and these bookmakers, you know, they're going to put them in places where they can draw 50-50 action. They're not
That's
just going to leave
absolutely
it
right.
in no man's land forever and get pounded. So
there's a
I
lot
think
of
you have
fairy
to-
tales. You know, you're right, Rob. There's a lot of fairy tales in this business, in this profession, and the biggest fairy tale of them all is that you'll hear it every day. No matter where you are, somebody will say, "Man, these odds makers, they know exactly what. Look how close it's. They know exactly. You know, they don't care. They could care less who wins or loses. They want that. They want equal money on both sides. Take the 5%, say goodnight, and start again in the morning. That's what they want."
And that's That's not the analogy. That's the connection to the way Wall Street is run.
Right.
And the similarities are very strong. You know, the market maker for Apple Computer every day wants a balanced book. Now, granted, the prices of stocks will fluctuate a lot more than the lines, but it's the same endeavor. You know, I agree with you, Tom. I'm so glad I met somebody that actually said it with the passion you said it, because I get sick and tired of hearing, "Well, let's go see what Vegas thinks." Well, you know, Vegas is thinking 5%, like you said, and then waking up and doing it again. I mean, it's not a prediction. You hear it all the time in the big games, the Super Bowl, the NCAA championship game. You know, and
you'll even hear me say, you'll even hear somebody, "Listen, this line speaks to this game." And when I say that, I don't mean that that Vegas thinks Team A is going to beat Team B and it's going to be some upset. It speaks to what they know, and that this is the number that they think that they can get equal number. That they can get basically equal shares, as you would put it, of public and sharp action, where the shares are going to equate to be completely and utterly, perfectly parallel. So when I say that, I'm typically saying that, there's going to be there's a contrarian play, or whatever you call it, public action for that matter. There's a game tonight that I won't say it, but I'll say it anyway, and that's the line speaks to this game. So I think, in my opinion,
which game is that?
And go ahead, Tone, if you want to mention it, or else. I was just going to say real quick that, they throw numbers out there, guys, and immediate market correction is generally, not generally, but a lot of times what these odds makers depend upon. Hey, listen, get in line. We'll take your hits right off the bat so that you can set the correct line for us. You know what I mean? Right. The big money comes in, it sets the
without
line.
Question.
And that's what happens. I think that they might have gotten one. They probably underestimated one here tonight because of the personnel on the floor, and game opens with a total of 224 or something, or 226. Maybe we see 234 at this point in time. Players come back. The things used to make these numbers are seasonal numbers, overall statistics, power ratings, and such. And it doesn't generally account for players that might be returning, and all of a sudden, you see a game like, I'll speak of this one, the Minnesota Timberwolves with D'Angelo Russell back, boom, the money comes in, boom, 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 7-point move. And Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards. What do you think of that trio, Tone? Tell me what you think of that trio: Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, and Karl Anthony Towns. Little to no defense and all about offense.
It's an open door. It's an open door. They welcome anyone and everyone to shoot and score as quickly as possible so they can have the ball. And that's what that trio does.
Now, and they should have over-under for passes between those three. It would probably be under 10.
And Russell's played fairly well. He surprised me that he came off that and didn't look like in my opinion, looked like he hadn't missed a beat hardly. So.
Scored 25, right?
Right.
The other night in his first game back. Real quick, John, just theory, in particular to that game. Somebody like myself, when I see the player back, and I automatically regrade what my total baseline would be for the Minnesota Timberwolves. The odds makers obviously are using seasonal numbers. Those seasonal numbers to me go in the garbage. I go back to games where D'Angelo Russell was involved, and I came up with this game being should have opened substantially higher total wise than it did. So that's why you see the move. We'll see if it works out or not. There's no saying it's going to work out.
It was, it was the only game I missed. Yeah,
Indiana's shoving a lot of question marks at us, right?
Right.
Brogdon,
Right.
Sabonis,
right.
right on down the line, Miles Turner.
Yeah.
But for the game to keep creeping up like this, you have to believe
They're
those
playing.
guys are in the game.
Sure.
Nobody's betting this game this recklessly if they don't think 4 starting Pacers aren't playing in the game.
We talked about that big card I had in the NBA yesterday. 4 games
Mhm.
a lot for me. It really is. And my only miss was my over. I like that over in the Indiana and Chicago game. I thought the school was out with the new additions to the Bulls, and that they would be, and they played pretty well yesterday. The thing is, this Indiana team has a lot of questions. They're the ones that didn't contribute on that total. So, I wrote a little bit about it this morning too. That I thought there was a question mark about them changing coaches. I mean, if you don't think there's questions right now about what Nate McMillan's doing with what he has and what he's really doesn't even want, where he supposedly doesn't even want to be, compared to what's going on in Indiana. And I know there's other variables, but I know a lot of Indiana fans. So you guys, they can't make heads or tails of what to expect. Don't know what's coming, and most of them don't have it. If I ask them what would you do if you were the GM, they don't even know. Don't know. They don't know what to do with the coach. There's a lot of questions. So.
You know what's crazy about that? And John, again, I hate to just beat one particular subject to a pulp here,
I
but
know.
the Indiana Pacers.
It's all right.
Up. You know, about 2 months into the season, maybe less than 2 months into the season, that team won a game coming from behind.
Yeah.
And I remember this distinctly. We were on the next day, Tone, with Joe Ranieri and Ski, and the quotes from Malcolm Brogdon and company were how great Nate Bjorken, the new head coach, former Toronto assistant, is, and we love Coach, and Coach does this, and Coach does that, and Coach does the other thing. And to your point about because I was with you, I was in that same room, Chicago, Indiana, over last night, for a lot of reasons. One of the bigger ones being Indiana's failed to play any defense or shown any desire to play defense recently.
I agree.
And they didn't last night either. They just didn't score enough. But it does make you wonder how these players were so in love with the head coach, let's say back in mid-January, and now all of a sudden this team is just taking a severe nosedive into the abyss. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it either.
Everybody's subject to recency bias, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
What'd you do for me yesterday? What are you going to do for me tomorrow?
Well, I know one thing. Switching gears here. Unfortunately, I do have an appointment to get to, and regretfully, what these things have to get done. But circling back to the Sixers and my rant last night, Simmons obviously didn't have a triple-double, but we're getting paid 10-1. I don't regret that one. Total points, assists, rebounds. That one didn't win either. However, we were, I think, unanimous, especially myself. I'll take the lead on this topic that Ben Simmons was going to shut down Tatum and Brown. And I just want to point out that Tatum played 35 minutes, shot 7 for 17, 3 for 10 from beyond the arc for 20 points, and a negative 12 plus minus.
Yeah.
Brown, 6 for 10, 3 for 7, 17 points, minus 22 plus minus. I sum this all up with all 5 starters of the Philadelphia 76ers having positive double-digit plus minuses, and 2 of them, Harris and Green, had over 20. I conclude my case.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all talked about that game. Philly was one of my play. That's the game I'm talking about tonight. I have some questions about where Boston's going, with how they're playing. The first 16, 17 minutes of that game yesterday, Boston looked energetic. They looked alive. They were playing hard. They were executing. They were technically sound, and it took maybe 3 shots, a couple 3-pointers, and a 10 or 8 to 10 point margin, and they looked like they looked like the puppeteer had left the building, and that they were limp.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll find out very soon. I think we're going to find out a lot tonight, because that number in Boston, essentially -3 in that game. Let's compare what last night. Are you saying that? Are we saying? Here's my question to you. Philly was what? A pick 'em, right? Now,
yep.
I understand this is a
minus 1.5 too during the day.
So what you're saying to me then is that that if it was going to be New York and Philly tonight, that Philly's going to give it's a 3-point game. That essentially, I know I'm
right.
stretching this, but it's speaking to Boston right here. This is not based on roster, talent, perception. The number is not correct.
Yep, I can't agree more.
And last night, Tone, we talked about it a little bit. I'll be quick here, John, but Joel Embiid had nothing to impede him in the lane. It's not a good matchup for Boston. Joel Embiid goes off for 35 points.
Yep.
He's kicking the ball across the floor because he only makes 16 of 20 free throws, to show you how involved he is right now.
So true.
Without Mitchell Robinson in the middle, don't have the Embiid factor, but the Boston situation, I just don't think Brad Stevens is coaching the type of team with the mentality that he wants to coach. They're different. They're different. These guys are different. Kemba Walker sits tonight. Tristan Thompson, I think, returns tonight. How effective he'll be off of COVID, I don't know. But they can't play Kemba on back-to-back still, and that's a problem because Evan Fournier's out as well. It's a problem.
He was nothing. I mean, I did watch some of that game. I was very excited and I anticipated wanting to see the pick and roll with Kemba, as we discussed yesterday too. And it's non-existent almost.
Right.
It's just non-existent, and it's not the same team.
I agree.
It's just interesting. I can spend hours on each game, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with them the next time the line comes out. But we won't do that.
Well, like I said, fortunately, I want to talk to you guys for the rest of the night, but I gotta go do some things.
I think we all
have to be done.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna wrap it up right now. So for Rob, Veno, Tony, Finn, the Predictive Playbook, and myself, may all the wins be yours.